Welcome to New England Ski Journal's Basecamp Podcast, presented by Country Ski and Sport. Ski season is here, and it's time to gear up at Country Ski and Sport. Shop now for your best preseason deals at any of their 3 locations in Hanson, Quincy, and Westwood, Mass. Or shop online at countryski.com.
Hey everybody, welcome into the New England Ski Journal Basecamp Podcast presented by Country Ski and Sport. I'm your host, Mike Solimano, with my co-host,
Keith Pearson.
Keith Pearson, what are you thinking these days?
I'm ready. I saw enough webcams. I saw enough snowliage. Let's go. It's game time.
You're using my punchline, game time. Game on. Game on.
Close enough.
Yeah, close enough. Same thing. You know what? I used to love getting Powder Magazine and Ski Magazine in the mail in August. But when you see snow and you see it on the peaks, something changes.
Which one gets you more fired up? Natural snow or the guns? Or the test, the snow gun testing?
You know what? Natural snow is still number one, okay? Because you can test and then we can go warm. I mean, look, we're not into consistent cold weather yet, but just the feeling, watching a lift run and seeing it snowing at the same time, there's something really special about that.
There is something about the idea of spinning the lift that gets you going. But I go the other way. When I see the guns being tested, that means we're really close. You can have a freak snowstorm,
sure,
in early October. But, they're serious when they have enough people around to fire things up and see how everything's working.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from.
We were so close, too, by the way.
So,
a couple days.
My wife and I lived in Colorado for a bit, and I traveled the mountains out there. And, going to a race event, and seeing snow at Labor Day out there, the guns might have been tested, but driving through it, driving to Steamboat and coming through Rabbit Ears Pass and in a snowstorm at Labor Day or up across the Eisenhower Tunnel. I mean, those things just get me excited.
It's good reason to be excited.
Yeah, I mean, you just, look, there can be snow at any time of the year up on the rock pile on Mount Washington.
Yep.
Okay, you just never know. It's that upper atmosphere. But, the other thing about the snow, the snow guns, but when you look up and you see reds and yellows and you keep climbing the slope and all of a sudden it turns white, I mean, there's not a better spot than being at the Mount Washington Hotel and looking up and seeing the peak at Mount Washington white.
You play golf at all?
No, that's an old guy's sport. No, it's you know what? I played golf at one point.
I left it behind me.
Honestly, I've got too much energy. It's not that I'm ADD, but I really want the adrenaline rush, and golf never gave it to me.
Yeah, but the shots from the golf course at Mount Washington are unbelievable. Just because. You get the hotel right there in the foreground, and in the background you get Mount Washington. It looks fantastic, and even better if you can get the steam train going up, on the cog as opposed to the biodiesel that they're using. It's a great time to get ready to get after the winter.
Yeah, it is. I think the other thing that really gets me jonesing at this time of year is the unexpected. And I use the word the unexpected, when you hear, we heard that Black Mountain got purchased. That was unexpected.
Right.
Okay? the Tenney situation, a little bit unexpected that it got a new owner last year and out of nowhere. You know, a lot of the ski industry is planned out, and you can almost predict, okay, Vail's going to take this resort. Altera's going to take that resort. You know, those are expected things. And I just got an email that Indy is adding some resorts, unexpected, for this coming year.
A lot of them.
A lot of them, but we haven't heard who, but unexpected. There is one thing that blew me away unexpected this year.
Yeah, the fact that Killington has been spun off by Powder, well, most of Killington has been spun off by Powder, was kind of caught everyone by surprise. And even more so, to who it got spun off to.
Well,
the people themselves.
If you remember a few years ago, Powder owned Park City. And
whoops.
Yeah, I mean, it got spun off. It was unexpected, and stuff happens. Okay? But this in our backyard, the largest ski area in New England with the most skier visits, is going independent.
Yeah, it's exactly what you want to see. You know, we talk about Vibe and Stoke and, you know, the conglomeration, and, you know, certain places need to have it. You know, you need a strong backed owner, but at the same time, independent, each place has its own feeling to it. Killington's definitely one of those places.
Well, let's put it in raw terms, okay? A Wall Street firm, you know, they traditionally pick up the independents. This is going the reverse. And not only is it independent, but it is the community of Killington, being Killington skiers, that bought it. That's blow away stuff.
It's the kind of stuff that you want to see. You know, Phil Gross and Michael Ferry are putting their money, you know, where their mouth is. They want to turn this into, they want to make the Beast even better.
Well, the Beast has a future. It is New England, wholeheartedly New England. And I am so looking forward to hear Mike Solimano's views of how it happened, why it happened, and as, you know, I'm going to say the new CEO of Killington, how he thinks this will progress forward to make Killington even better than it is today.
They've already laid out, they're putting $30 million into the mountain in the next 16 months. It's a lot.
Walking the walk. So right after this break, folks, we're going to have Mike Solimano, the new CEO, but we all know him, of Killington, Vermont, coming on. We're going to find out what independence is all about. We'll be right back after this. The Button Ski Hanger is a patented ski storage fixture that safely stores alpine skis regardless of length, width, or shape. This means that your fat powder skis can now be stored next to your narrower carving skis, your race skis, and your kid skis. For more information, visit their website, buttonskirack.com. The Button Ski Hanger is also available for purchase at amazon.com. So make your purchase today. The Button Ski Hanger is simply better for your skis. Welcome back, everybody, to the Basecamp Podcast. Now joining us from Killington, the Beast of the East, Mike Solimano, the guy leading the charge up there with a great team. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
What's new up there? I mean, we haven't heard anything about Killington over the off season, have we?
Nothing. We've just been relaxing and chilling out. Pretty quiet.
You guys are on cruise control right at the moment. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's been a pretty exciting time, right? I've been working on this transaction probably 6 months, so it's fun to finally have it finished and kind of moving forward. So it's all been really great news. Everybody's been really excited about it.
Well, we're gonna get into some questions about this new independence of Killington, but I want to know first off, what's the vibe up in Killington now, snow guns have been tested. There's, we've all looked at the North Ridge webcam going, it's here. What's the vibe up there?
It's been great. Yeah, we got a couple inches today. It's snowing right now, so feels good. It's going to warm up a little bit, so I don't think we're getting open too soon. But, we like to test the system. We always have some leaks. We put a new pipeline in up in Northridge, and, we got to test that, make sure everything's working well. So guys have a little bit of work to go check and make sure everything's good, so we're ready to go when it gets official.
Well, I've been saying game on, okay? No more talk about this. It's time to start making some turns.
Can you just speak to what this new independent Killington means and how this all came together? You said it took about 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, as you can imagine, some of the big resort groups were interested, and some of that seemed to fall apart. And at that point, John Cumming owns Powder, called Phil Gross, who's now one of our lead investors, and they knew each other from the ski team forward, and had some relationship over the years, and said, hey, can you put together a group locally? So that happened probably March timeframe, somewhere around there. And then we started, doing calls, talking through it, and it's been great. And yeah, so I'm mainly working with Michael Ferry and Phil Gross, kind of the two lead investors, who are really kind of my new bosses, and great guys. It's interesting to me, when we announced the deal originally, I think a lot of people were like, who's that? Like, we don't even know those guys. And, it kind of speaks, I think, a little bit to the Killington vibe, where it's, people aren't trying to show how much money they have. There's some people here with some money, but nobody really knows. And so I think that's kind of cool. These guys have been, philanthropic in the area for a lot of years, but a lot of times they do it anonymously, so nobody even knows they're giving money. So, very laid back and kind of just great guys. So, I'm really excited about it.
Well, I don't blame you. Having local skiers that love the mountain and the town as much as they do, now putting their money where their mouth is, I mean, how could you not, as a general manager, love that?
Yeah, no, it's about as good as it can get, right? I mean, I'd say in that whole time period working with them, what I think is amazing is, right, they've both been really successful in their business careers, but honestly, they haven't given me any feedback like, hey, why don't you guys screw more on that trail? Why don't you make a little more snow here? Like, I get 10,000 of those comments from everybody else. And now this group's like, no, we like what you're doing. You guys know what you're doing. We want to get you some more capital and kind of help the place that they love. So that part's really been almost remarkable.
Well, I've been around way too long, I think, but I've been around a long time. The ASC years, the Powder Corp years, the early years of Killington. What I wrote down in my notes, I don't know why I wrote it down, but I sort of parlayed to Sugarbush for some reason in my head. But the early years of Killington, when I talk to all my friends up there, and I've got a lot because I've been skiing out of there forever, when I talk, what happened when you took over the realm, you changed the culture up there, Mike. And I am so happy that the new owners are letting you run with that culture that the community loves now.
Yeah, no, it's been great. I mean, it's all, as we're talking, it's always about having the right team. And, I think when I took over, that was kind of a big theme for me, is like making sure we have the right team and just allowing the team to do stuff that makes sense, right? There are periods of time, especially with American Skiing Company, and then even the early days with Powder, where, everything was kind of run through a financial lens. And I'm a bean counter, right? I was the CFO, so I get it. It's important. But, I think we realized we had kind of gone too far with a whole bunch of cutbacks. We shrunk the season, right? We got rid of the Bear Mountain Mogul Challenge. There's a list of all the things. And it wasn't that complicated to just kind of bring back some of the things that people loved. On the flip side, we did keep some of the things that we implemented in those years. Like, we only do Pico 5 days a week. That made that place way more viable than just going, oh, we have to run everything all the time. Because that's the problem in this business, right? Like, some of our hardcore pass holders, right? They're like, why is that lift not running today? And we're like, well, it's a secondary lift. And, so we have some of that debate. I mean, I think for me, it's always been about like explaining the plan, telling them what we can do and what we can't do, trying to be honest and transparent. I mean, it's pretty basic, but I think sometimes we lost sight of that, especially when people complain a lot in these businesses. You can kind of want to just shut them off and go, you know what? Everybody's got an opinion. I'm not going to listen to them. So, we've tried to kind of have more of like, I try to foster this, like we should listen to everybody's feedback, right? Some feedback's a lot better than others though. And I think our job is trying to parse out which is the good feedback and which is kind of the not so good feedback.
Sure. What has been the feedback that you've gotten since the announcement of the new those in town?
Yeah, overwhelmingly, I haven't heard actually for a crowd like Killington, which is a tough crowd, I haven't heard any negative, honestly. I think in the beginning, there's like some people like, oh, are they really local? And, that type of debate when we said we have some local pass holders, right? They're not living 12 months in the community all the time, but, all their families, everyone has a connection here. Everyone's owned homes for decades. I don't think you can get more local like than that to really have a group that's going to be able to have the resources to buy a place. So, but all that group, Michael and Phil both learned to ski here, right? Phil didn't learn to ski till he was, I think, 25. And then he learned here and then he bought a house here the next year. So, you go and Michael's family, him and his sister and his brother all own homes. And, so there's a long kind of history of that, which is pretty cool. They just have seen. The best part is, what they've seen that it rains in December and January. It's going to go from 40 degrees to minus 10 someday and everything's frozen and like all the stuff that happens in the East Coast. And so I think that piece won't freak them out. So that's really great.
Okay. So I'm going to guarantee none of that's going to happen this year. It's all going to start snowing December 1 and it's not going to stop until March 1st.
I'm waiting for one of those years.
Well, it's been that's I'm just going there. How does this whole thing change your job? Does it change it at all? And where do you see the course going now for Killington moving forward?
I think, I look at it as say like within Powder, they've been a great parent company. They're really hands off. I think in the very beginning years, it was a little tougher, right? Even with the community, but I'd say, the last, say 10 years, since I've taken over, Powder's been really great in letting us kind of do what we want. And they've supported a lot of the changes that I've made. So I'd say they've been great. So moving forward now, honestly, they don't come east that often. So it kind of made sense really for them to not really have us as a property. They just were coming less and less. I think on one hand, they trusted what we were doing, which is great. But it seems like a natural evolution. But in terms of my specific job, it's pretty much the same. I'd say the only real difference is, we control our own destiny a little more, good and bad, as I tell my team, right? We have to manage capital and cash flow and all those things. And if we have a tough year, we can't rely on someone out west to have a better year to maybe help us out. So we've got to plan that way. So I think that helps that I have a finance background and I think so we'll spend a little more time on that type of stuff, but I think operationally it's very similar. The only other thing I would say is, the ability to kind of move quickly will be nice, right? That's the entrepreneurial piece that I feel.
Sure.
That's the piece that I'm probably the most excited about. Even within Powder, even though they were pretty hands off, capital allocation and things like that are always a challenge as you get into bigger companies. So I think we can really kind of pivot and, I can send a text to Phil and go like, hey, it happened. We were working on a snow gun purchase and we saved a bunch of money with, some extra credits from some of the efficiency groups. And I texted him and said, hey, we can get some more fans on the bottom of Superstar for the money we saved, and he's like, yeah, we should do that. Like that's the answer versus in a bigger company, that's very complicated, right? If you save some money on one project, you really can't allocate it to another. It's just not the way it works. So I think that to me is the fun part of like making it feel like, wow, we can really kind of move and make kind of cool decisions very quickly.
Fantastic.
You guys certainly have moved quickly on this with the almost 500 guns that'll be up by the time the season starts. And, have to have Superstar already kind of lined up for during the off season. How far in advance have those plans been made? And now to be able to have a set timeline for them. How important is
Yeah,
it?
and the best part is, I mean, to show the commitment that group had was they committed to Powder that they'd cover the balance if the deal didn't go through. So, you think about that and go, wow, they were,
Oh,
we had to decide on Superstar before the deal was signed, right? And the snow guns where we couldn't have got them in. So that was something we had to work through on both sides. And this group's like, you know what, we know how important it is, so we want to get it moving. So that allowed us, the first 500, we pretty much have all of them in now. We did go through the list, out of the 1,000 and pick some that were maybe on not the steepest trails. So we knew we could actually get it done because by the time we got them in, it was kind of midsummer, right? Where next year, the next 500, we could start, April, May, starting to put towers in. And some of the steeper trails, like up in the canyon, those type of trails, much more complicated to get a rig up there and put, posts in the ground and those things. So that, we've been working on the logistics to try to make sure we can maximize as many in this year and not just have them sitting in the yard and waiting for next year.
Sure. Well, we talk Superstar in the lift. I got a question. You're looking at a 6-pack on Superstar. How's that going to change the experience on that peak? Is it going to put too many people on the lift on the hill?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I know we had a lot of feedback from people about that when we first announced that. I think it's more of a thought that, moving forward, I think you're seeing it across the industry, more people putting 6-packs in.
Right.
From my standpoint, it's not particularly for any more capacity. While you can get more capacity out of a 6-pack, on a chair like Superstar, that's not why we're doing it. It's just a nicer ride, more comfortable, those type of things, right? We only have one 6-pack. It's our bubble chair. I know bubbles are a little different because they're like a couch, right? With the top. But just generally, a 6-person lift is more comfortable than a 4-person lift. If it's only 4 people, especially, right? So the way we're looking at it isn't that we're doing it for capacity. We'll just adjust the speed to make sure we're not, putting too many people up there. On the flip side, it does allow us, if we have another lift that goes down, say the gondola goes down, and everybody goes to Superstar, and it doesn't happen that often, but sometimes you get a really big, that's the times where we go, okay, we have the capacity. If we need to speed it up, we will. And, I think as you see other lifts coming online, incrementally, it's not that much more money that I think it adds. It just gives you a lot of versatility having a 6-pack versus a 4. So I think that's generally where we're going, at least on the detachable lifts.
That makes a lot of sense. Not just for staying within the guardrails, but getting outside the guardrails when you need it. And I like that explanation, and it makes a lot of sense.
And the other thing, like on a Superstar, it's helpful too, because we always have wind challenges on every lift, right? And as you remember on that lift, it's very low to the ground, right? Because we're trying to keep you down below the tree line. The new lifts are higher up. So the 6-packs are heavier chairs, which help in the wind as well. So kind of trying to also, that's another kind of added benefit with that lift.
Strategic. I like it.
And also, Superstar was 35-ish years old. So, I mean,
yeah. It was old, and it got retrofitted by Paloma, but yeah, it needed to go. And that was the one we definitely, we're doing some work on it, make sure it's good for this year. And, and then we got a couple others that are waiting in the wings to be next.
Well, can you say which ones are in that, ready to lined up?
Yeah, I think the logical ones for us are Snowshed and Ram's Head. And,
yep.
We have some discussions on things like Snowden Triple, like what do you do with that lift, right? Like on one end, some of the groups like, we should just take it out. But it's like when you have an icing day, you need it. And then on really busy days, it does add some relief, but we need to, decide how best to kind of keep that one going. I think the challenge in the ski business in general is kind of like all the other lifts. We have a lot of lifts and some of them are old, and we're fixing drives and all the different components to them. And the question, I think, is, what's the best strategy for some of these older lifts? Because you're still not going to replace them all, right? Pico's got 2 detachables there, right? Now, the advantage is some lifts are old, but like a Pico, we're only running them for 4 months, right? Superstar, we're running for 6 months easy. And then now that we're doing mountain biking, Ram's Head and Snowshed are getting a lot more turns, really. So the actual age of the lift is a little less important versus like how many revolutions it's really got.
Sure. They're getting a lot of mileage on them right now.
Exactly.
I get that. Well, so we heard that the Skyship's going to get some new cabins?
Yep. Yeah, we've had some struggles with that. You know, the old cabins, had a lot of door closing issues. And so we've struggled a little bit in the last year or two at that. So that's going to be it's going to be similar cabins to what we have on K1. And we're also going to build a new barn out in Skyship. If you've been out there, the old building. It's kind of like a lot of things around here kind of got started, and I don't think it was ever finished completely. So, we're going to redo that and make some changes out there. So, we're excited about that.
Yeah. We've got World's Cup, close to a month away. What's the future of that? Because we did hear that the Skyship replacement could play a factor into
Or Superstar.
next year.
Superstar.
Sorry. Yeah,
Right. Yeah. So the challenge with Superstar is, the Doppelmayer's the company that's going to put that lift in. It's our first Doppelmayer here. Like always, everybody, like anything, if you build a house, everybody wants to start early and have as much leeway to not miss any deadlines. So, they're wanting to start as early as, April 1st. And you were going, oh boy, we have too much business at that time to close that lift, right? We're not even debating keeping that lift open into May. It's just a question of how far can we keep it in April and not push on the other side, right? Because the farther you push them out, the harder it is to get it open on the other side. And then we have some restrictions at the top of the mountain when you can do work, and all those types of things. So we're still working through that. But basically what it means to spring skiing is, I've told the community, we did a meeting last week and just said, we'll probably sometime mid-April have to close that lift. And we're going to do the best we can to provide great skiing everywhere else. We got a lot of places to go. Probably make some more snow up in the canyon or in Snowden. Maybe we keep Bear open a little longer. I mean, I think anything's kind of open on the table and figuring out the logistics. And it's also not exactly just the trail for Superstar. They eventually need to get trucks up there to take towers out and all those things. And how does that play to the operations of the resort? We're still working through the logistics. And then in terms of, World Cup, for that, we're still, it kind of fits as we work through that plan. It'll kind of tell us where we are in World Cup, right? We're obviously doing it this year. We're really excited about it. But, next year's going to be tough. I'm not positive we're going to be able to pull it off in that schedule. So, those are the discussions. I think at this year's World Cup, we'll talk with all the different parties and we should have a better idea by then and saying, hey, either we think we can do it or we can't. And, what are the different options there?
would you be okay if with a 1-year suspension and getting back onto the schedule in the 26th?
I mean, I think if we could do that, I think that's the type of stuff we talk about, right? I mean, we like doing it and, just got to figure out kind of how that stuff works into the schedule and all those things.
Well, I love that you're already out in the community talking about how first off, the lift needs to be changed and it's going to benefit everybody, but you're out in the community talking about it very early. We saw, the Heaven's Gate chair up at Sugarbush needed to be changed, and that didn't come out until real late, that they were shutting down that, really great spring skiing terrain. And, it was definitely a public relations situation. So you being out front of this is huge, for Killington and for the community.
Yeah, I mean, I think being in this community, I know like people are really passionate about this place, right? And I've learned just tell them the good and the bad as soon as possible, right? Like I stood up in our meeting last week and probably had 800 people in our community meeting. It was, really well attended. We had some of the owner group there. It was really, people were really psyched. But I did, I said, no way we're making June 1st. Like it was not. It's not in the cards. There's just too many mechanical problems. Not only of Superstar, but K1, we go into the canyon, we need to replace the gearbox and we need to get that down to do maintenance work. I mean, it's getting hard as we're running all these lifts year round to find even a window to take them down and do all the required maintenance, let alone a big project like a gearbox. So, I just said, hey, we're going to go as far into May as we can. We're still committed to spring skiing. On the other hand, I just want to set expectations that June 1st is not realistic. And I think generally when you tell people that, I think in the past, sometimes we made mistakes not wanting to tell people bad news or even good news. We sometimes just didn't communicate it. And I feel like the more we do, it's almost always better.
Well, the canyons are utterly my favorite spot to ski in the spring at Killington. It's just great terrain, and the slower lift is actually better.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, I think the thing you lose anywhere but Superstar is kind of the whole spring vibe and
Yes,
out at the bottom. It's hard to replicate that. Maybe only at Bear you could replicate something like that, right?
I think a pop-up umbrella bar at the base of the canyons ought to be in the works.
Well, we can talk about it.
I think that would be a great little party spot.
It's one of those things would be just bring the party to the people.
You've got new owners, Mike. You said they can move on a dime.
I know. Our group's usually good about making sure we have a good party. So it'll be a fun time. Everyone's going to enjoy spring. It's not like, we're definitely not giving up. I just want to also set some expectations.
I love it.
It's one of those things like, do you have, just tell everyone up front, just let them know this is where we are.
Yeah, I mean, I told them I didn't even get booed off the stage, so it wasn't that bad. It doesn't.
So, I guess where do you see what's the next? If you could have anything you want, what is the next step that you want to do or changes at Killington?
I mean, I think that the big, our whole business is lifts and snowmaking. That's especially on the East Coast, right? And so I think we have, several lifts that we need to work on in the next 10 years. And we're basically, the new owner group has said, hey, we're going to reinvest all the cash flow you can generate for at least the next 10 years. So I can't get any better than that. I mean, Powder's put a lot of money in. We put a new K1 and new peaks, right? So we've got a bunch of new base lodges. As the village builds out, which it looks like it's going to start to, we'll take down Snowshoe and Ram's Head. So you can see in 5-7 years, eventually we take down Bear. We could have basically all brand new all the lodges could be pretty much new by 7-10 years out, right? Skyship, unfortunately, we had a pretty bad flood, but I think we've fixed that, and so the inside of Skyship's basically brand new. So Hilton's have a brand new lodge there, right? So you have the Peak, K1, Skyship, all brand new. When the village comes in, Ram's Head and Snowshoe are going to combine into one, so that'll be a new one. So I look at that and go, from that standpoint, our infrastructure will be really great. And I think as the village builds out, that's going to just add some more, kind of vibrancy to the community. So I think that's going to be great. And then, snowmaking is it's almost never ending, the amount of money we could put into snowmaking. This one's a big one on efficiency as we do that. As we build out these 1,000, the next thing will be we'll need some more water pumping capacity. Right. We always had a ton of air on the air side. And as we're shrinking our air plant by going to more efficient guns and tower guns, the next logical thing is how fast, how much more water can you pump up? So, those are the big things. It's a lot of kind of behind the scenes type of thing, I would say. But, it's pretty great. It's pretty fun to sit and kind of debate which thing we should do next.
Mike, can you just go back for the person who doesn't follow everything in and out? Can you just, the new village that's going to go in through Great Gulf, can you just explain just what it is going to be and how the size of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first phase is saying, something like 500 units. And, I think that, so it basically takes Snowshoe and Ram's Head. Right now, the road goes right between those two. And to make enough room for a village kind of core, they have to move the road. And this is why the project's taken so long, because when you move the road and all the power and all the utilities, the cost of the infrastructure is really expensive. And I won't get into it, but that's how the town ended up. We partnered with them on building a TIF, and that's where the financing for this came. But anyway, in terms of the logistics of we move the road over to the Ram's Head side, and they build the village and kind of get it nice and flat. So one advantage to the village will be Snowshoe and Ram's Head lifts. Right now, you have to go under the road and back up. That under the new model, everything will be at a flat grade. So I think that'll be a benefit. And it is, to me, it's not just about like who can afford to buy one of the new condos in the village, right? I think the successful villages have made it a place that everybody wants to be, right? That's where the music is. That's where like the vibe is. And, I think we're lucky, Great Gulf's the partner that we have to build out the village. They're skiers, right? They get it. Like some of the groups we've had in the past were mostly just real estate developers, didn't really even understand the ski resort. And, I think we could be building some of this village for the next 25, 30 years. And so between that and some of the lift changes and other things we're going to be doing, there's going to be a lot of disruption here, right? It's sort of like this discussion on Superstar, right? To move forward, you got to go back a little, right? So I think we're going to have that. I think our team is really good at, kind of balancing operations and figuring out, okay, well, if we can't do this, we can do this. So I look at the village in a long term as, a really big win for everybody. And I know some people kind of go, oh, it's just for a bunch of rich people that can afford a condo or a house in there. And I think if you look at some of the more successful villages, everybody wants to go there, right? It's not just the people that own the condo in there, right? They've made a sense of place that people want and go, that's the place to go. It's sort of like K1 lodges for us now, right? I mean, some people complain the prices are too high, or I don't like the architecture, like in that. And it's like overrun every day. We can't get anybody to eat anywhere else, right? 50% of our business now is at that lodge for food and beverage, even though we have 5 other lodges, right? So it's just funny how people kind of move to where it's hard to move people. You have to really make it an environment people want to be. And I think the village is going to bring that. So that's going to be really great.
Well, I think what you just stated is proven up at Spruce Peak. Not everybody can afford something up at Spruce Peak at Stowe, but their center, their performing arts center is all there. The town ends up there one way or the other to enjoy it.
Right. So that's the benefit. And we've talked a lot with the Great Gulf team about, even as we're building it out, right? There's like, how do you make in these construction phases not impact the skiing or have the least amount of impact? And that everybody starts to see the benefits of it, right? And I think they know there's multiple phases in the village, and they really need to make sure each one that everybody, public opinion is that it's adding to the experience here and not taking away from it.
Sure. Well, I've got a question for you for all skiers. How is this going to affect the Icon Pass?
We're still with Icon. We're in a long-term deal with Powder, and part of that we split off on our own deal, but staying with that. So we're with him for some period of time, several years, and then I think we'll see where we go from there. But we're excited about it. Icon's been a great partner for us.
Yeah, that's fantastic because, I think that is very important to the New England skier, and the same thing with the Boyne resorts, because it gives them options if you don't want to go with an Epic.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons that Phil and Michael put together a group is they really didn't want one of the bigger groups coming in, because the general model is they come in and make it an unlimited product, right? Like
Yep.
Most of the resorts. And the feeling was, Killington's already so popular that, being a 5 or 7 day Icon Pass product for us works, right? There's blackout days. We don't we get overcrowded like some of the other places have had. So, the feeling is if we went on unlimited with either of those passes, it would be much tougher from a crowd control. So, we feel like it's a good spot to be. We get to have a lot of people come here and visit, but it's kind of a manageable amount.
Sure.
How has your job changed? You got a nice little title bump up to CEO. Congratulations. Just how has it changed, and have they truly been hands off?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we're, they're a little hands on now. We're like, we have for me, it's like I have a once a week call with those two guys and talk through some stuff. But, it's mostly the mechanics of the deal and a lot less of anything. We created a board. There's 9 members and 3 independent members. We're going to have a board meeting in another week and a half. So, but it's one board meeting in the fall and one in the spring. Spring is really the board meeting in the fall is approve the budget, and the meeting in the spring is looking at capital for the next year. So, they're not, it's very hands off. That's the plan. That's always been the plan. And, I think that was a worry of mine, of course, like, hey, now I'm going to have, how many new bosses? And on the flip side, I always say I already have 10,000 bosses. So there's a boss here.
Sure. I understand that statement. Well, my last question for you, do you think, we just don't see in the ski industry these days, resorts going from corporate, even though, I never thought of Powder as a huge corporate entity, even though they own some really good products. Do you see a trend happening where we might see some resorts go independent like Killington?
I mean, I think you'll see it. I think it's unique. It'll be interesting. I think we'll know the answer to see what happens with the other 3 resorts that Powder has.
Sure.
Right? I think, it'll be interesting. I'm not sure I know the answer. I think it's harder than it seems. I know Bachelor's trying to put together a group up there. They're expensive. It takes a lot of money. I mean, so I think it's still a challenge, right? I would say it's going to be I'm not sure it's an actual trend, but we'll know in another 6 months when we see what happens with the other Powder resorts. I mean, I think it'd be awesome if they can figure it out. I do think it's pretty challenging to find a group like we did that has that type of resources, right? We announced that we were 100% equity, right? So for us, that's a huge deal because, debt's what kills ski businesses. It's just so capital intensive, and especially on the East Coast with the variability in weather. So, I think we've been amazingly lucky to find a group that actually could do that, and that just that many people wanted to invest, right? Without a lot of control. I mean, if you think about it, it's like, hey, do you want to give us a bunch of money to invest in a resort that you have almost no control over? You can't get any money out for 10 years at all. We're no dividends. We're taking everything every profit we make and we put back in. I mean, the good thing about that is I think anybody that was really in it to try to make money when they were talking about it, those people dropped out because they run the math and go, I could do better somewhere else. So what happened for us, which is amazing, is we only ended up with the people who really just love the place and said, hey, maybe it'll be a good investment. Maybe it won't, we believe in it. We think it will, but it's definitely not it's not a great short-term deal.
Sure.
There's 16 investors altogether, correct?
Yeah. I mean, it's mostly families. There's a bunch of different families, a couple small groups. We had one group that put together a group of kind of local people at a smaller number, and they're kind of in as one group. And then we have Great Gulf and Powder still in. So, I think it's a good balance. It's really a great balance from that standpoint.
Well, I honestly, when I got the news, when I saw your video, I was excited because Killington still is the beast of the East. And the last thing we want to do is homogenize that to make it like every other resort. I know you're doing a great job up there, Mike. I know your team is outstanding. I can't wait to see where this leads and what the product will be moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting. Everybody's happy. I mean, we have a lot going on in the community, Killington Forward, just a lot of, the business owners, the pass holders, the locals, just trying to make sure everyone's on the same page. And so it's pretty cool to have this finally come back and it's come full circle, right? From kind of the tough days with American Skiing Company, come all the way back to truly local ownership. So, I mean, we're lucky, and, I think, it'd be fun for people to see how we do.
Well,
did you ever think you'd get to this point?
I actually can't say I ever even thought this could be a possibility because, I always assumed we're big enough that as you can imagine, especially the 2 big groups really would want our amount of skiers, right? That's a lot. There's just not that many independent, places they can get, right? In terms of getting, like, if the goal is to grow your season passes, which is their main model, you have to go where the skier visits are. There's just not that many big resorts left that aren't really fully owned or committed. So I honestly didn't even think about this. And when I got the call that they were talking to Phil, I already knew Phil and Michael from the community. I was like, wow, this could be amazing. So, and the other thing that's interesting is some of the other resort, GMs have reached out to me like, man, you got lucky. You hit like the jackpot with like an owner group like that says, hey, we don't know anything about ski resorts. We're just going to let you run it. That's kind of a dream come true.
Well, we're very happy for you. We're very happy for the Killington community. And I look forward to coming up. I know you do like to ski. to go out and make a couple turns with you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Definitely come visit. We should probably be open in a couple weeks.
Love it.
There you go.
Well, thank you so much, Mike, for joining us and sharing what was going on or what is going on up at Killington right now as we have independence up at Killington.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Mike.
Are you serious about playing your sport in college? Do you need a flexible education that allows you to maintain your practice and competition schedules while also preparing you to succeed at the next level? You should check out the University of Nebraska High School. UNHS is accredited and offers more than 100 online courses, including NCAA-approved courses to protect your academic eligibility. Students could earn a UNHS diploma or take a single course for transfer credit. Courses are college prep, self-paced, and available 24/7, 365. Enroll anytime and take up to a year to complete a course. Visit highschool.nebraska.edu today.
If you want to be inspired and informed on everything about the New England ski and outdoor scene, then you need to check out skijournal.com. Skijournal.com delivers daily content on breaking industry news, tips, gear, dining, travel, entertainment, as well as all archived episodes of the Emmy-nominated New England Ski Journal TV show and the Basecamp Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe to New England Ski Journal, the longest-running regional ski magazine in the country. New England Ski Journal's award-winning writers and photographers bring all 4 seasons to your door with best-in-class coverage on skiing and the outdoors. Log on to skijournal.com and click on the subscribe button to get New England Ski Journal mailed to you today. New England Ski Journal is a Siemens Media publication. Siemens Media. Inspiring. Informative. Insightful.
And welcome back to the Basecamp Podcast presented by Country Ski and Sport. 3 locations, Hanover, Quincy, and Westwood. And how can you not be excited about the future of Killington when you hear the way Mike brought up how the whole purchase came together?
I said I was blown away, those blown away moments. He brought it all to light. This is good for skiing, first off. This is good for the skiing community of New England and the community of Killington proper. The fact, what I love about Mike, first off, is that he is out front. He said it. He goes, I'm going to tell you the good and the bad. I'm not going to hide it.
Right.
Okay?
We're going to find out. There's no point to hiding, like, the bad, because when it comes out, what are you going to do then?
Well, you start to politicize it rather than telling the truth on the front side. I thought what he said, I asked him about the new 6-pack for a reason, because I'm concerned that Superstar, Skylark, Bittersweet can't take that type of traffic. But his explanation was outstanding. It makes sense. And I wasn't thinking in those terms. I was thinking, oh my goodness, 2 more people at every chair on Superstar. But, coming up front, being forthright, telling people that, look, June 1st isn't a reality this year, but long term, it's going to be better. And you got to give a little to gain a lot.
Right. We'll be okay 1 year without, pushing for Memorial Day weekend or June 1st. I thought the big thing is the fact that all the profits going in for the first 10 years are going back into the mountain. Therefore, nobody is in this for the quick hit.
Well, so moral of the story is, I don't know how long you've been around the ski industry.
Consumer, plenty of years, but, inside of it, not nearly as long.
So there's an old adage in the ski industry. You want to make $1 million? Spend $2 million. Okay? Or whatever it might be. Okay? You can't, the ski industry is not a quick hit situation. And for the investors to realize that this isn't Wall Street. They're independents. They might be hedge fund managers or whatever, irregardless, but the ski industry is not of that way. We see it right now with Epic, with layoffs and everything else, because this is a tough business.
You can't control every single element of this business.
No.
And unfortunately for them, the biggest one is the weather. And there's definitely nobody going to be controlling the weather anytime soon.
Nobody, but snowmaking has gotten much better. We produce snow at higher temperatures than we did 30 years ago. And Killington, like they've always done, is investing in snow guns.
The investment in snowmaking, I mean, you used to be, hey, we got 3 new trails. We have this new lift. It's this season especially across New England. There's only a handful of new lifts going in.
Yep.
It's 90% is new snowmaking technology.
Well, technology has gotten better, and if you do not have snowmaking in this day and age, you're probably not going to ever be profitable, even though it costs money. Snowmaking is the key, and I can tell you point blank, because I do ski a lot, I do travel, I can tell you that Killington's conditions across the board have been as good or better than anything else in New England on a consistent early season basis.
Absolutely.
And, I applaud him. I thought, Mike, you know what? A CEO that tells it the way it is, good, bad, or indifferent, and is connected to the community. He said he had 800 people at that meeting. I mean, how many ski area GMs, CEOs are willing to stand up in front of 800 community members and tell them that, hey, your ski season's going to be shorter this year?
Yeah, not many are willing to do it.
Nope. Well, I can tell you, I applaud Mike. I applaud the team up at Killington. They do a fantastic job, and it was so good having him on to tell about Killington's independence.
It's such a huge mountain in terms of, it's one of those places that how their season goes is kind of how the rest of the whole New England goes. People are going to go there. If they don't go in droves, they're probably not going elsewhere in its place. It's kind of the big fish.
It is the big fish in terrain, in snowmaking capabilities, in lift capacities. I don't know anybody in New England that hasn't said, I want to go to Killington at some point in their skiing career. Anybody.
Right.
So that sort of speaks volume for who they are. Folks, that'll be it for this episode of the Basecamp Podcast. We want to thank Mike Solimano from Killington for joining us today. We also want to thank Country Ski and Sport for being our sponsor. That'll be it for today. We look forward to the next talk on the Basecamp Podcast. We will be dealing with a little more independence on the next one. So make sure you check in. We'll see you next time.
New England Ski Journal's Basecamp is a Siemens Media podcast. Siemens Media. Inspiring, informative, insightful.